Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, coming to you 15th of August and looking ahead to another busy weekend, this time in the company of Ross Miller and fan favourite Adam Bayliss. There have been rallying cries from every social media site that we'd have you back, Adam, and you've obliged. So in TC's absence, I think he might be on holiday, which he's allowed. We're very honoured to have you back. Thank you for joining us.
No, it's a pleasure. Probably could have picked a better week with TC slamming in a couple of winners last week and then having to step into his shoes. But we'll do what we can.
Yeah, we have picked quite a tricky one in terms of the quality of the racing. There's a lot on. Not certain that we've got the best racing, but we've got some big puzzles for you to solve. So here and hoping you can continue on, as you say, a good week. Last week's winners included 4TC, Giraffe at 6-4, Mount Teed at 5-2, Lake Victoria at 2-1, and that added to my own selection, Babouche, who won 5-2, and that's a very good filly indeed. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about those horses as we go on. We are only a few days away now from the York Ebor Festival, which is the focus next week. So like a lot of the time when it's just before a festival and you have a Saturday, a few of these races can get kind of forgotten. So we kind of struggled a little bit to know what to select, but we've gone with one massive handicap with the Great St Wilfred, and we're also going to give you some impressions of the Hungerford Stakes at Newbury. So it is the Great St Wilfred that we're going to start on. This is a 19-runner handicap. I'm not certain whether we've done this before on the SBK podcast, but as we brought in the fan favourite Adam Bayliss, he also happens to be one of the big heads at SBK. He has requested this race, so the Great St Wilfred is on our radar now, the 6 furlong handicap. And as I said, this is extremely hard. It's about 8-1 the field at present. Summergan, last year's runner-up, is at the top of the betting. We've got Dare to Hope in here, Kitai, Ingrator, Melida Scouse, Radio Gugu. They're sort of northern specialists, and this is a race that has been won by northern trainers year after year. So as I said, I should have said 6-1 the field, and it's probably going to flip-flop and change around. But Summergan, last year's runner-up, is the horse that is at the top of the betting. But this is not a race that you would want to even begin trying to price up. And Adam, a race that, as I said, you're quite keen to choose. I think that it's a race where you see a lot of sprinters that we know where they're at this stage of the season. Maybe they've come down to a good handicap mark, but it takes a good mind to try and solve this. Why do you like the look of it, or why do you like this kind of competition to solve?
Well, I mean, it's a proper race, but we should say we did have the Irish Ledger Trial slated in for this, and that just when Dex came through, it didn't look particularly fantastic. But now, like you say, listen, this is a proper race and a proper puzzle, and certainly one that I'm massively looking forward to. Like you say, we know quite a lot about the field so far, but then also, there's a case of a lot of horses perhaps have had long, tough seasons, and a few that are fresher than most. So it's a really interesting contest.
It is. We've got SBK are paying a 25% boost on this race to a maximum of a £10 stake. So to be fair, with that in mind, it's a very good betting race. And Ross, this is, as I say, you look at what we saw in the Stewards Cup. What do we get? A 50-1 winner. This is where you find the value. And our Mr. Value, who likes to sort of work out the ones that maybe are just sort of teetering around a competitive handicap mark potentially. Is there something in there that caught your eye?
Well, I think the first thing to point out is, obviously with TC away, who's the draw specialist, I thought I'd better have a bit of a look. And historically, high draw at Ripon is where you want to be in these 5 and 6 furlong sprints. But then the last 2 years, the winner has come out of stall 6. And when you look back through Ripon sprints so far this year, low numbers have tended to come out on top, but they've not had a field as big as this, obviously. So I wanted to hedge my bets, take one on either side of the track, and hope that they don't come down the middle. Summergan is a sort of standing dish in these handicaps, but even at this sort of veteran stage, he still is showing that he's got plenty of ability. He's probably not quite the horse he was, but even last year he was running really competitively. You have to excuse his last 2 starts at Ascot over 7 furlongs, and I don't think he quite stays a stiff 7 like Ascot. In a fierce pace in these sort of premier handicaps, and at Goodwood last time over 6 furlongs. both times he got hampered. Now at Ascot, he was dropping back into trouble. At Goodwood, he was just hitting a gear and looking like he was going to run close. Probably not place, but he was going to put up a solid run. That was with Jason Watson on, who keeps the ride. I think he gets on particularly well with him. You go back to his run before that, he was third at Newmarket off a marker 93. He was second in this race last year off a marker 97. He now gets in here off 89. There might well be something young and unexposed that has just got plenty in hand. But I'm yet to be convinced that he's an 89 horse. I didn't think he was badly handicapped going into Ascot and Goodwood. So the fact he's down now £4, I think is a decent enough drop. And we know he likes the track. He's been there, I think it's 6 runs. He's only once failed to make the frame. That's over a long period of time. He's far from a sort of Ripon standing dish. But when he runs there, he runs really well. I think you get a run for your money as long as 18, which is where he's drawn, is the right side of the track. If that's not the right side of the track, I thought a younger horse, Ingrator, for Jack Shannon, was interesting off a mark of 83. He had a really good run at Yarmouth last time, but again, he was quite keen through the early stages. And I just wonder whether these sort of Premier handicaps, where they just go a relentless gallop from start to finish, might help him drop the bridle and just travel into the race a little bit better. He was disappointing when tried in 2 big handicaps as a 3-year-old, so a 19 runner plus handicaps. He disappointed, but he was a 3-year-old, and I always thought he was quite an immature horse as a juvenile, certainly, and going on into a 3-year-old year, so I could forgive that. He's looked a bit more mature lately. He's won off a mark of 82, so only a pound higher, and after that win off 82, he went up to a mark of 91. It was a really impressive win. He's definitely got more than ability than 83. I think he is a bit quirky, but I just wonder now, with a bit of maturity on his side for being a couple of years older, whether these big field handicaps might see him drop the bridle and suit him a bit better. He's drawn in stall 4, so on the opposite side of the track to Summergand.
Okay, Ingrator, you've got the jockey booking of Harry Davies on board. I wonder, I don't know if he's ridden him before, but what do you make of sort of the sort of southern-based jockeys trying to take their chance at a track like Ripon? Because even, trainers-wise, it's been a northern-based race, but jockey-wise, it can be as well. So that's just something to note.
Yeah, but I think you sort of answered your own question there, really, because generally northern jockeys ride for northern trainers. And I think the trainers do have an advantage in that they will know the nuances of Ripon, Beverley, those sort of tracks far better than the southern trainers. But southern horses can win it. I take on board what you're saying. I shouldn't think Harry Davies has had too many rides there, but I think over these sort of 6 furlong sprints, it's the quickest horse in a straight line, gets there first. There doesn't need to be a huge amount of jockeyship, really, other than trying to navigate a clear passage.
Okay, just having a look. 0 from 4 at Ripon currently, Harry Davis, but that can all change. Hasn't had a huge amount of experience there. It's quite ridgy. There was a 2-year-old around there recently, and the comments back were that you can get a little bit unbalanced there. But these horses, that at this stage they've had plenty of experience. Nothing, I would imagine, has had as much experience as Summergand, who's having his 102nd start on Saturday. He is 10 years of age now, and he's had, I think it's 19 runs I've counted since that second in this race last year. He's been a real credit to his connections. He's at 6-1, Ingrator 14-1 for this. So as I said, SBK offering you that 25% boost. So very much a race worth getting involved in. We've got 2 sort of perspectives here, Adam, in terms of the kind of horse that you can go for, the kind of been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and the kind of more progressive type. And that always seems to be the case in these big field sprint handicaps, the ones that sort of ready to go to the next level and take on this kind of dash to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked kind of closely at a couple of the 3-year-olds I was with, Richard Hannon's Amram Ram. Let's go with Amram Ram at the Shergar Cup last week. Didn't cut much ice. I whittled it down to 5, and don't worry, I'm not going to give you 5 selections for it. Mainly because 2 of them were trained by Richard Fahey, and he's got a pretty poor record in this. He sent 43 runners to the race and only won it twice with 7th place. So if you're playing the numbers, I'm kind of happy to pass those over. That left me with Richard Hannon's other runner, Bosch, along with Radio Gugu and Emperor Spirit. Now, I'll definitely have a cover bet on Emperor Spirit Robert Cowell, but the fact that he's campaigned in mainly over 5 furlongs this season just put me off a bit. Like Ross has said, this race tends to be a pretty relentless gallop, and that might just find him out. But there's no getting away from the fact that he's well capable of winning off a mark of 89, and that narrow defeat to Al Bashir at Ascot earlier in the year is top form in the context of this race. So pass him over at your peril. In terms of Radio Gugu, finished 1-2 with Bosch at Chester early in the season. Had Dare to Hope back in third for Richard Farr. He obviously reopposes here. David Evans runs had a lot of racing this year and is pretty exposed in terms of the field here. It's actually, I think it's a 12th run of the campaign, so she's taken a lot of racing, but she's held her form well. That run in the dash at York was really, really good, and that was a step up in class, but acquitted herself really well. And a repeat of that, with the likes of Corker in here, we'll see her bang there again. So I thought 14s each way was very fair. But yeah, Bosch for Richard Hannon, that's the one I really like. And, he's got a load of runners across tracks on the Saturday, particularly at Newbury. So it's perhaps a clue in itself that Sean Levy comes here. Going back to our previous discussion, Sean's only actually had the one ride at Ripon in the last 5 years. It was a winner. So perhaps that's key, the 100% strike rate at Ripon coming in on Saturday. But Bosch has sort of mainly plied his trade on the all-weather this season. But that run at Chester that I mentioned before, that was a good one, as was the one at Newbury early in the season, actually, when he was narrowly touched off by Wiltshire and chairman of the board. If both of those lined up in this, you'd fancy either of them. They're both better than most of them, particularly Wiltshire. It's probably a slight question mark over whether a mark of 94 is a bit prohibitive in this field, given Joe Levy's been taking off £5 for the majority this season. But again, I think Sean Levy's well worth that £5 claim. He's one of the best pilots in the weighing room, to my mind. So he's got a nice draw in 13, like Ross has said. 8 of the last 18 winners have come from stalls 8 to 13. That's your TC in absence stats. So yeah, it'll be Bosch and Radio Gugu for me at around 14-1 and 16-1.
Yeah, really interesting that. Sean has also got Linwood running at Ripon for Richard Hannon as well, who's an impressive 2-year-old winner. So they are doubling up, and I think he's got a couple more rides as well. So it just goes to show that making most opportunity, that might be one to keep an eye out as well. Okay, and actually quite pivotal is that Witch Hunter, I'm pretty certain, is running in the Hungerford Stakes, the race we're going to come on to next, who Sean rode last year to win. So probably that's another tip in yourself, that he'd rather go off to Ripon to ride Bosch and likes of Linwood than stay with Witch Hunter at the Hungerford Stakes at Newbury. So Bosch for Adam, and as said, in the mindset that this horse is, I'd imagine they probably always thought he'd be a little bit better than this, but he should be competitive. Although he's nearing on top weight in here with a Ramazan at the top, who's got lumps of weight with a rating of 103. So yeah, we've all got sort of slightly differing opinions here. I was a little bit very much sort of one-dimensional on that. I thought these northern-based trainers, northern-based connections, they probably target this race for a long while. They've got great prestige, the Great St Wilfred. And I had a look at Great Secret Guest, horse 13, as felt like he was a horse that's obviously come back into a little bit of form after having wind surgery. It's always feel like gets to a point where you don't want to have wind surgery too late on a horse, see if they sort of think about things afterwards a little bit. But it seems to have benefited him as he ran well to finish second at Redcar last time. It was not that long ago at all, and he looked like a better horse. He looked like a horse that's definitely improved from that, and his back form going prior to that, he's only a 4-year-old. He hasn't done a huge amount of racing, but he's been kept up these sort of northern tracks, spent a lot of time on the all-weather at Newcastle during the winter months, but has shown his hand on the turf as well. And this will probably be the most competitive race he's faced, but he's definitely rated to be competitive. Brian Smart knows what it takes to win this race. He's a son of Havana Grey. I think that he's got lots of upsides really coming out of stall 5, which I think Ross mentioned, you could be on either side at this stage, and he's 16-1. So I think that's a very good each way price for a race like this. So secret guest for me in the Great St Wilfred to add to all the other selections that we've given. I've just repeat them. For Ross, he's gone for Summergand and Ingrator, and Adam has gone for Bosch and Radio Gugu. Now, I touched on the Hungerford Stakes. That's at Newbury on Saturday. And as I mentioned, with this weekend just sort of playing second fiddle to all of the great racing that's going to come up at York next week, we've got a Group 2 in this Hungerford Stakes, but really the 7 furlong 3-year-old plus division isn't massively deep anyway. And then you've got the City of York Stakes next week at York, which is going to have, essentially exactly the same conditions. So you're kind of having 2 races over the course of a few days, and it's going to just sort of weaken it, I believe, anyway. So I don't think this race is by any way that superior, and I don't think it has been for a while, I'm afraid. We've got 7 runners going to post, and I suppose last year's winner, Witch Hunter, is of note, but doesn't necessarily come into this in massively good order. We'll just give you the quick rundown of the betting. English Oak 5-2, Kakuli 5-2, Tiber Flow 9-2. Said last year's winner, Witch Hunters 5-1, Bulgaria 10-1, Pupmaster 12s, and Jumby, who was a previous winner of this, 20-1. And maybe Adam, I suppose if you forgive a couple of the horses in this field, English Oak and Kakali, for their last run, and go back to their Royal Ascot form, that leaves some progressive horses, but you kind of have to forgive them a little bit. So kind of gives my point again that not a strong renewal, and we don't have a class angle really here, or do we?
Yeah, 100%. I think Kukuli is the class angle, and I'm very happy to put a line through that Deauville run. The word is that he didn't travel particularly well to France, which is quite interesting because he was quite well supported in the market that day. Seems like a horse to me that, well, from what we've seen racing wise at least, needs a fair bit of cover in order to sort of really show his best self, and really didn't get that at all at Deauville compared to that run behind Artem earlier in the season, and that good run at Ascot. I mean, I just can't fathom really why he's not the clear fav here, given he's obviously £4 clear on ratings, gets that weight for age allowance. We talked about that sort of need for cover. That's possibly a slight negative given there's only the 7 runners here, so that might be an issue. But on pure ability, really should be winning this. And as far as English Oak goes, I mean, I know Ross is the chairman of the English Oak fan club, but I really don't like him. I'm sorry. I think he might fluke a win at listed level at some point, but to my mind, he's just a decent handicapper, really. And I don't massively like putting my faith or money in the Ed Walker stable either. I think really, in terms of playing this race, I might have a same race acca with Kukuli to beat Marco Botti's Bulgaria, who I think is actually massively overpriced at 10s based on what she's shown this season and that filly's allowance that she gets.
Okay, interesting, and some big words. And we know now where Adam's sentiments lie in terms of some yards. English Oak, I suppose, though, just quickly, if you can forgive Kukuli for his last run, you possibly could forgive English Oak for his last run. I mean, that was a tougher race than this is, or do you think that he literally just can't do the jump up from handicap to group company?
Yeah, I think it's that for me. Like I say, I think he'll kind of get there at some point. He might fluke a listed win, but he's just not that good. Sometimes especially with the switching ownership with Wathnan coming on, you get a bit wrapped up, and the horse sort of gets this sort of sexy profile and might just not actually be that good. I mean, what he's done is fine. I mean, he's up to a mark. 108 now, so it's a decent horse, but possibly just not that good.
Yeah, he's really having to pay the price for that big win at Royal Ascot, isn't he? He went up £9 for that, and it was, as the old saying goes, sort of a pattern or listed group performance in a handicap. Ross, you were kind of shaking your head. I don't know, maybe potentially in agreement there with Adam or not. The case of English Oak. And I actually think the quotes from Ed Walker were quite interesting before the race at Goodwood last time. He was surprised that the horse was so short, and he actually levelled out in the end to 4-1. But I think there was a bit of word of warning that he didn't really know how good he was, and maybe that's just how good he is. 7 lengths beating by audience. Does it leave him good enough to win at a race like this?
I agree with Adam, and not just because I like my job and he's the boss. I think Kukuli has got a clear class advantage, and I can forgive that run last time. I didn't know he travelled badly. I think the ground, the slower ground in France didn't suit him. Certainly think that the pace of French racing, where they go slow and then really quicken, probably didn't suit him. Ascot was a standout for him, and it was the quickest ground he'd race on the strongest pace he had to run at. English Oak, conversely, I was quite excited about him going into Goodwood. I thought he could take a step up, and I failed to see, unless you say he didn't like Goodwood, some horses don't, but there was no real obvious signs in what he did that it was the track working against him. So I think he probably just isn't quite that good. I disagree slightly, though. I think he'll get a group win, but largely just because it's a fairly weak division. And as you pointed out, the powers that be that make the racing calendar seem intent on pushing these races close together to dilute a weak division to make it even weaker. So I don't fancy English Oak in this. I'm quite keen on Kukuli. My one concern is, where does the pace in this race come from? Because I think Kukuli is definitely better when he has a strong pace to run at. Jumbie, Popmaster, maybe. I mean, neither really tend to go on and make it, but there's nothing in this field that wants to go on and make it. They tend to be ridden quite promptly. I did wonder with Witch Hunter whether the fact that the form has just dropped off a cliff, they might just try something different, go from the front and see if that sparks a bit of life back. Fulgaria definitely wants to be held up. Kukuli, as Adam said, wants cover. English Oak wants cover. It would just concern me if it turned into a dash, and then English Oak has got a bit of 6 furlong speed, versus Kukuli, who I think will stay a bit further. I'm hedging my money on the fact that there will be somewhere will be a strong enough pace, and that last time in France was down to the travel. I felt more down to the ground. He's by Kingman, Out of Kind. They were both very adaptable in terms of ground in their race career, as have been their progeny. But I just felt that he was so good at Ascot on really quick ground, which is the quickest ground he'd raced on, that getting back on a sound surface in an English race where even if they go relatively slowly, it will still have more of a tempo to it than a French race. I think he's head and shoulders above these in terms of ability. He's well favoured by the weight for age allowance, often rating of 112. I think he will get it done, but I don't think you'll see the best of him until he gets a really genuinely strongly run sort of Group 1 level gallop.
Yeah, which they went, didn't they, in the Jersey Stakes, and that's exactly how it's set up for him with Hartem. And yeah, it is a funny race, this. It could be, it could turn out very odd, like the likes of Jumbie used to. He had a real problem with the stalls for some time and was so slow away, so you can't really rely on him. Popmaster, potentially, is he there to help the likes of English Oak? But it's a funny one. Type of Flows are kind of maybe the curveball, because I feel like that can't have been his true running at Goodwood last time. He was so good at Goodwood the time before, but again, you've got to forgive a horse in this race, which Tom was here. He would remind us of City of Troy. We have to forgive our horses. That's our biggest learning this season. But Kukuli, I think we all in unanimous agreement, this is the horse of, if any of them is going to be better than this level, it's him. And they did that by pitching him in a Group 1 last time. It just didn't work out for him at all. It's kind of a watching brief again for me. I'm not going to repeat what the others have said. I hope that he's going to turn out to be a proper horse here and bosses it and shows the potential and promise that he did at Royal Ascot last time. And I'm just going to follow him as well, but nothing massively strong opinion-wise for me. As Ross mentioned, we've got a lot of race meetings this weekend. So Naps and Next Best can come from anywhere. There's also Group 1 racing in Deauville as well. The 2-year-olds are on offer in the morning. So we could be anywhere which way you want to be. There could even be some jump racing. So Ross, I know we're in August. I know it's the depths of the summer, but I feel like there might be something just coming out of the woodwork for you.
Yeah, maybe, Jess. I mean, horses, my social media now is horses coming back into work for the jump season. I'm starting to get a bit excited about it, particularly when you have, like you say, a fairly underwhelming weekend of flat fare. But my nap does come on the flat at Newbury. It's a decent priced horse, Star Law, in the 3 o'clock for Sir Michael Stout, off a mark of 97. He ran some really eye-catching races as a juvenile. I was quite excited to see what he did this year. He was really eye-catching at Goodwood when he got hampered. I mean, I lost track of them times he got hampered. Just never got a run, having looked like he was coming to win. Was really keen on him when he headed then to Royal Ascot, and he just never raised a gallop. He was last throughout. Never looked like that was going to change. It was simply too bad to be true. So Michael Stout, I had it in my Royal Ascot notes, and I think it was 9% strike rate he had going through Royal Ascot. They were really out of form. That's changed. It's 25% now. Not had a lot of runners, but the ones that are running are winning and running well. And I like the fact there's not a lot of runners, because it tells me that they're really picking. They've clearly had a problem, and they're picking which ones they think are ready to get back to the racecourse. Tom Marquand steps into the saddle in place of Richard Kingscott. For my money, that is a marked jockey upgrade, particularly in a race of this nature. He's around about 9-10 to 1. A mark in 97 wholly underestimates him. When he gets it together, he's really going to get it together, be a smart horse, yard back in form. I think Newbury will be an ideal track for him. Plenty of room to not get sort of hampered. So Starlaw is the nap in the 3 o'clock from Newbury. And then the next best does come from Market Raisin and the jumps, because I just couldn't resist. And it's Warner's Cross, who arrives here for mark in 93. He was actually one of the handicap movers and shakers, eye catchers, after his third run at Warwick. He was a really free going horse, and they definitely just ran him around at the back to try and get him to settle. So much so that the stewards had them in, and the BHA handicapper made them run a fourth time for giving them a mark. I thought I'd landed on a right one then when he went to Market Raisin for his first run of handicap, ran really well, fell at the last when looking like going exceptionally close. He's placed at a big price already this year. He then won at Market Raisin over 2 mile, 4 furlongs last time. That was off a mark of 89. He's now up to 93, as I said, so a £4 rise, but he gets an extra furlong here. James Bowen in the saddle tends to mix between James Bowen and Ben Post. James Bowen gets on really well with him. I don't think he's a completely straightforward horse, but as he's racing more, he is getting more compliant. I think the extra furlong, now he relaxes, will see him step forward more, and I think that'll help him defy the £4 rise. So Warner's Cross is the next best in the 650 from Market Raisin.
Oh, the words, the 2 words. I'd say you've been chomping at the bit for that. We've got a jump selection and a flat selection, so no fans that have been waiting for this for whatever can be complaining. Warner's Cross in the Market Raisin 650, and Starlaw in the 3 o'clock at Newmarket. So thank you to Ross. Adam, you have, and I'm sure you're going to be back again, because it's been, I think, twice in the last month or so, but for all your fans who've been waiting again for you to return, what have you found? What's the meeting that you're looking forward to this weekend?
Well, we'll see how we get on. And listen, no twig hoppers for me. I'm back at Ripon for my NAP and next best, and it's one you actually mentioned already, Jess. It's Linwood for Richard Hannon and Sean Levy, who I think could turn out to be a really, really good horse. Ran a nice race on debut at Salisbury, I thought, behind Ardennes, who I think if Ardennes isn't in your tracker already, get it in your tracker, because that's a proper horse. Might benefit from a stable switch, but less said about that, the better, probably. This Linwood went in next time out, obliged at Newbury in a decent race, beat one of Hugo Palmer's Hawkspill, I think it's called, and I think the yard, a fair bit of that's been really well backed and ran well in some nice races. So listen, I think Linwood will probably be a short price, but I'd be pretty confident he'll oblige. And then the next best is a Ripon specialist, Fortimore, in the Silver Trophy at 245. Absolute model of consistency. So I think he's run sort of 18 times or something. Only finished out of the money on 4 occasions, winning on six of those. He's got top weight, has to lump that. Totally get it. But he's one off marks higher than this in the past, and the draw in 7's fine. He's around the sort of 7 to 1 mark at the moment, which to my mind that's an unbelievable each way bet given that course form. And yeah, definitely want to be with, I think.
Okay, right. Well, there we go. As I said, Linwood. So Sean Levy is going to have a nice double for this podcast with Bosch and Linwood, and looking forward to seeing how they get on. So thank you to Adam. I am going to have my nap at Deauville on Sunday in the Group 1 Pre-Morny, and this sees the return of the Royal Ascot winner, Shareholder, for the Carl Buck Wathnan Racing Team. A horse that, from reading about him, and I was very keen on him anyway at Royal Ascot in the Norfolk Stakes. He seemed like a horse that they got ready very quickly, even for his first outing at Beverley. And then he turned around to go to Royal Ascot very quickly. And to do what he did, despite still being pretty green, I think shows a horse with a lot of talent. They've done the best thing for him, given him this bit of time from the end of June to now the middle of August to get him back on track for what is normally one of the most hotly contested Group 1 2-year-old races around in Europe. He's American bred. He's going up from 5 to 6 furlongs. I think that he should and will be proving to be the best 2-year-old around at present, especially from the Colts division. It's not been a strong year for consistency with 2-year-olds. I don't think we've seen a few sort of storylines being punched holes into. So I think that Shareholder is the one that we've been waiting for. So looking forward to seeing how he gets on in Deauville on Sunday. And then my next best comes at Newmarket on Saturday in the 3:15. This is the 2-year-old nursery. So Timeful got given a rating of 76 off the back of her win at Newmarket last time out. So that was a race back over the same track, and she returns to the racecourse with Eddie Greatrix, who won on her again, and this is over course and distance. She actually beat Silver Ghost, who's got a higher rating than her and also reappears. I think Timeful won just with a little bit in hand. She only won by a short head, so I think she's been a difficult horse for the handicapper to really assess. I don't think she was spot on when she ran at Doncaster last time in a race that's worked out quite nicely, and I think that she just might have been overlooked a little bit from a rating perspective. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she gets on in the 3:15 at Newmarket. So that is it. We've given you a little bit of everything. We've given you Adam Bayliss, all you Adam Bayliss fans. We've given you some jumps action, all you jumps fans, and obviously all you Ross Miller fans. And hopefully we've given you a few winners as well. Don't forget, all new SBK users get £30 in free bets when they sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And head to SBK. Lots of other offers and promotions. Of course, we've got that 25% boost on the Great St Wilfred on Saturday. Let's hope we found the winner. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you very soon.